hibachi catered for us today. Let me show y'all. Let me turn the camera around. Isn't that sweet?
The Johnson County Sheriff's Office says around 6:45 Saturday afternoon, their dispatch center received a call from 10 Cheney Drive in Garner. Investigators say the caller said nothing before hanging up, which prompted 911 communications to call the number back. That's when the sheriff's office says a man answered the phone saying he did not call 911. The dispatch overheard a woman in the background saying, "Why do you want to kill me? I need help."
Why do you want to kill me? I need help. That was Teresa Adams Pug's final desperate cry for help on March 22, 2025. A 54-year-old mother and grandmother begging for her life in her own home. But here's what makes this case so disturbing. When police called back after that 911 call, her husband Christopher answered the phone and denied making any emergency call. For 20 years, Teresa and Christopher seemed like the perfect couple. They posted happy photos together on social media. Neighbors saw them as loving and family synchrony. There were no fights, no police visits, no red flags that anyone could see. So what happened that Saturday night in their quiet Garner, North Carolina home? How does a marriage that looked perfect from the outside turn deadly in a matter of minutes? And why did no one, not even Teresa's closest family members, see this coming? Stay with us as we explore this shocking case together, because what you're about to discover will change how you look at the people closest to you forever. The truth about Teresa's final hours is more terrifying than you think. Welcome to our channel. Please like this video, share and subscribe to this channel to help raise awareness and spread caution. Teresa Rennie Adams Pugh was the kind of woman everyone loved to be around. At 54, she was a devoted mother to 4 children and a proud grandmother to 14 grandchildren and several great-grandchildren. Her family was her world, and she made sure everyone knew it. Born and raised in North Carolina, Teresa had deep roots in her community. She was active at St. Anna Free Will Baptist Church, where she served as church secretary. Her home was always the center of family gatherings, especially during Thanksgiving when cars would line the street as relatives came to celebrate together. On social media, Teresa and her husband Christopher looked like they had it all figured out. After 20 years of marriage, they still posted loving photos together. Christopher would embrace Teresa in pictures, and she would write about how blessed she felt. Their neighbors in Garner, North Carolina saw them as the ideal couple, always friendly, always supportive of each other and their community. But on the evening of March 22, 2025, that perfect image shattered completely. When Johnston County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the couple's home on Cheney Drive, they expected to handle a routine domestic call. Instead, they found themselves in a tense standoff that would last for hours. What started with a disconnected 911 call would end with 2 people dead and a community struggling to understand how something so terrible could happen to people who seemed so happy. Teresa's cousin, Josette Battlegoing, spoke for many when she said, "This seems like it came out of nowhere." Family members had been texting each other trying to make sense of what happened. They looked back at Teresa's recent social media posts, searching for clues they might have missed. But there were none. The woman who had spent her life bringing people together, who was known for her infectious smile and generous heart, was gone, and the man who had been by her side for 2 decades was responsible for taking her life before ending his own. How does a love story that lasted 20 years end in such violence? How does a woman who was surrounded by family and friends find herself alone and afraid in her final moments? And what can we learn from Teresa's story to protect the people we care about? The answers lie in understanding who Teresa really was, not just the happy posts on social media, but the full story of a woman whose life touched so many others. Teresa Rennie Adams was born on June 29, 1970 in Moore County, North Carolina, to parents Marion Shaw and William Thomas. From the very beginning, family meant everything to her. She grew up in a close-knit household where love and support were never in short supply. After graduating from Fuquay-Varina High School, Teresa built a life centered around the people she cared about most. She became a mother to 4 children, Brian Adams, Lamecca Adams, DeMarcus Adams, and Adrian Adams, who sadly passed away before her. Each of her children knew they could count on their mother for anything. She was the type of mom who celebrated every achievement, no matter how small, and offered comfort during every setback. As her children grew up and started families of their own, Teresa embraced her role as grandmother with pure joy. She had 14 grandchildren and several great-grandchildren, and she knew each one by name, remembered their birthdays, and took pride in everything they accomplished. Her granddaughter, Danya Adams Smith, later shared how Teresa had been so excited when Danya got accepted to North Carolina A&T University. That was Teresa, always encouraging her family to reach for their dreams. Teresa's faith played a huge role in her life. As a lifelong member of St. Anna Free Will Baptist Church, she wasn't just someone who showed up on Sundays. She served as the church secretary and was involved in various church groups. Her fellow church members knew they could rely on Teresa to help organize events, keep records straight, and offer a helping hand whenever needed. But Teresa wasn't all work and no play. She had a vibrant personality that drew people to her. She loved to dance, and her family remembers how she could light up any room she entered. Christmas was her favorite time of year, and she went all out with decorations that made her home feel magical. Her house became the gathering place for family celebrations, with Thanksgiving being the biggest event of the year. Cars would line up and down the street as relatives came from all over to share a meal and catch up. Teresa worked for many years as a manager at ARS before enjoying some time in retirement. Later, she returned to work at UPS, where her co-workers appreciated her positive attitude and strong work ethic. Whether she was at work, at church, or at home, Teresa brought the same energy and care to everything she did. When Teresa married Christopher Pugh, it seemed like a perfect match. Christopher fit right into Teresa's family-centric lifestyle. He was welcomed by her children and grandchildren, and neighbors saw them as a team. They appeared to support each other's goals and dreams. Christopher seemed to understand how important Teresa's family was to her, and he became part of that extended network of love and support. The couple built a life together that looked stable and happy from every angle. They traveled together, attended family events together, and presented themselves as partners in every sense of the word. Teresa's mother, Marion Shaw, later said that Christopher adored Teresa and would give her anything she wanted. To everyone who knew them, Christopher and Teresa were proof that lasting love was possible. Teresa's cousin, Josette Battlegoing, stayed in touch with Teresa mainly through social media. Every post she saw showed Teresa and Christopher looking happy together. Anytime she posted about them, it was nothing but good things, Josette remembered. The family was grateful for social media because it helped them stay connected across distances. Neighbors on Cheney Drive knew the Pughs as the kind of people every community needs. They were friendly without being nosy, helpful without being pushy. Melissa Mattis, who lived across the street, described them as family-oriented people who regularly hosted gatherings. During holidays, the street would be packed with cars as Teresa's extended family came to celebrate. Teresa had a gift for making people feel welcome and valued. Whether it was a grandchild visiting for the weekend, a neighbor needing help, or a fellow church member going through a tough time, Teresa showed up. She was the kind of person who remembered details about your life and asked follow-up questions because she genuinely cared about the answers. At 54, Teresa was in a good place in her life. Her children were grown and successful, her grandchildren were thriving, and she had a husband who seemed to love and support her completely. She had work that kept her busy, a church community that valued her contributions, and a family that adored her. But beneath this picture of happiness, something was building toward that terrible night in March. Something that no one saw coming. March 22, 2025. Teresa and Christopher went about their day as they always did, with no signs that this would be Teresa's last day alive. But at exactly 6:44 p.m., everything changed. A 911 call came in from the Pugh residence. The dispatcher answered, ready to help with whatever emergency was happening. But instead of hearing someone explain the problem, the line went dead. The caller had hung up without saying a single word. This kind of thing happens sometimes. People accidentally dial 911 or children play with phones. So the dispatcher did what they're trained to do. They called the number back to make sure everything was okay. When the phone rang at the Pugh house, Christopher answered. The dispatcher asked if someone from that address had called 911. Christopher said no, they hadn't made any emergency call. Everything was fine, he told them. There was no problem at all. But the dispatcher could hear something in the background that made their blood run cold. A woman's voice, desperate and terrified, was pleading, "Why do you want to kill me? I need help." It was Teresa, and she was begging for her life. The dispatcher immediately sent deputies to the Cheney Drive address. This was no longer a routine callback about an accidental 911 call. This was a woman in immediate danger, and law enforcement needed to get there fast. Johnston County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the Pugh home just before 7:00 p.m. As they approached the house, they heard something that confirmed their worst fears. The sound of a gunshot coming from inside. The deputies tried calling the house again. Christopher answered the phone once more. This time, he agreed to come outside and talk to law enforcement. The deputies waited, hoping to see Christopher walk out the front door with his hands visible so they could figure out what was happening and make sure Teresa was safe. But Christopher never came out. Minutes passed. Then, more minutes. The deputies called the house again and again, each time asking Christopher to come outside as he had promised. Each time, there was no response. The house remained silent and still. Neighbor Melissa Matz watched from her front porch as her quiet street turned into a crime scene. Police cars lined the road and officers took positions around the Pugh house. What had started as a normal Saturday evening was now a tense standoff. Every 5 or 10 minutes, they'd blow the blowhorn and announce their names, Mattis later recalled. The deputies were using a loudspeaker to try to communicate with anyone inside the house. They were asking them to come out if they can with their hands up. The announcements echoed through the neighborhood as officers tried every method they knew to get Christopher to respond. They called his name, they explained that they just wanted to talk, they assured him that they were there to help. But the house remained silent. Hours went by, the sun set and darkness fell over Cheney Drive. Still, there was no movement from inside the Pugh home. No lights came on, no curtains moved, no doors opened. It was as if the house had become empty. But the deputies knew that wasn't true. Other neighbors came out to see what was happening. Word spread quickly through the community that something serious was going on at the Pugh house. People who had known Teresa and Christopher as friendly, normal neighbors struggled to understand why police had surrounded their home. The deputies faced a difficult decision. They had heard Teresa's desperate plea for help. They had heard a gunshot, and now they had complete silence from inside the house. They couldn't wait forever, but they also couldn't just walk away. Someone inside that house needed help, and it might already be too late. Around 11:00 p.m., after more than 4 hours of trying to make contact, the deputies made their move. They had obtained a search warrant that allowed them to enter the home. They had done everything they could to resolve the situation peacefully, but now they had to go in and find out what had happened to Teresa and Christopher. When the deputies entered the Pugh home, they found the answer to the question that had been haunting them for hours. Both Teresa and Christopher were dead from gunshot wounds. The woman whose voice had been heard pleading for help was gone, and the man who had promised to come outside and talk had taken his own life after taking hers. The quiet Saturday evening had ended in the worst possible way. A marriage that had lasted 20 years was over. A mother and grandmother who had been the center of her family's world was gone, and a community was left trying to understand how something so terrible could happen to people who had seemed so normal, so happy, so much like themselves. What do you think was going through Teresa's mind in those final moments? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more cases like this. When Johnston County Sheriff's deputies processed the scene at the Pugh home, they found evidence of what investigators determined to be a murder-suicide. Christopher had shot Teresa before turning the gun on himself. But beyond those basic facts, many questions remained unanswered. The investigation revealed no history of domestic violence calls to the address. There were no police reports of arguments or disturbances. No neighbors had ever called to complain about fighting or yelling from the Pugh house. In fact, the opposite was true. Everyone who knew the couple described them as peaceful and loving. Deputies interviewed neighbors up and down Cheney Drive. Each person they spoke to expressed the same shock and disbelief. Melissa Matzes, who lived directly across the street, told investigators that the Pughs were family-oriented people who regularly hosted gatherings. She had never seen or heard anything that would suggest violence was possible in that household. It's upsetting because you don't really know what people are going through in their life and in their family home, Matzes said, speaking for many in the community who were struggling to process what had happened. The news of Teresa and Christopher's deaths spread quickly through their extended family network. Teresa's cousin, Josette Battle Goings, received the news through a family text chat where relatives were trying to piece together what had happened. It was confusing and shocking, Goings said. The family members shared information back and forth, each hoping someone else might have seen warning signs they had missed. But no one had any answers. Goings, who had stayed in touch with Teresa primarily through social media, went back through Teresa's recent posts looking for clues. What she found only made the tragedy more puzzling. Any time she posted about them, it was nothing but good things, she remembered. The most recent photos showed Teresa and Christopher in loving embraces, smiling and appearing genuinely happy together. Teresa's mother, Marion Shaw, was devastated by the loss of her daughter. She told reporters that the murder-suicide was a total surprise to the entire family. He adored her, Shaw said about Christopher. Whatever Renee wanted, Chris would give it to her. She was fun-loving and the life of our family party. The family revealed that they had no idea Christopher even owned a gun. This detail shocked Teresa's relatives, who thought they knew everything important about the man who had been part of their family for 20 years. If they didn't know about the weapon, what else did they know? Teresa's children and grandchildren were left to grieve not just the loss of their beloved mother and grandmother, but also the complete destruction of their understanding of her marriage. The man they had welcomed as a stepfather and step-grandfather had taken away the person they loved most. Her granddaughter, Dania Adams Smith, had recently shared exciting news with Teresa about being accepted to North Carolina A&T University. Teresa had been so proud and supportive, as she always was when her family achieved their goals. Now Danier would have to navigate this major life milestone without her grandmother's encouragement and love. The community response was equally intense. Teresa had been active at St. Anna Free Will Baptist Church for her entire life, serving as church secretary and participating in various groups. Her fellow church members struggled to understand how someone so full of life and faith could meet such a violent end. Social media became a place where people shared memories of Teresa and expressed their shock about the tragedy. Friends posted photos from family gatherings and church events showing Teresa's bright smile and warm personality. The contrast between these happy memories and the reality of her death was almost too much to bear. Local news coverage of the case focused on the mystery of how such violence could occur in what appeared to be a stable, loving relationship. Reporters interviewed neighbors and family members, but everyone gave the same response. They never saw this coming. The investigation officially concluded that Christopher Pugh had murdered his wife Teresa before taking his own life. But the why behind his actions remained a mystery. There was no suicide note, no history of mental health treatment that family knew about, and no obvious trigger that anyone could identify. Some family members wondered if there had been problems in the marriage that Teresa had kept private. Others questioned whether Christopher had been dealing with personal issues that he hadn't shared with anyone. But these were just theories. The truth died with both Teresa and Christopher that night. The case left everyone involved with more questions than answers. How well do we really know the people closest to us? Can someone hide violent intentions so completely that even their spouse doesn't see them coming? And what could have been done differently to save Teresa's life? These questions would haunt Teresa's family and community long after the investigation was closed. Teresa Adams Pugh's case forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Domestic violence doesn't always look the way we expect it to. There were no black eyes, no police calls, no friends whispering concerns. Instead, there were happy social media posts, family gatherings, and neighbors who saw nothing but love. This is what makes Teresa's murder so deeply disturbing. It challenges everything we think we know about abusive relationships. Most people believe they would spot an abusive relationship from a mile away. We expect to see obvious signs, bruises, isolation, fear. But research shows that many victims of domestic violence appear to live normal, even happy lives right up until the moment violence occurs. Social media played a role in hiding the reality of what was happening in the Pugh household. Teresa's posts showed a happy couple, loving embraces, and positive messages about their relationship. Her cousin Josette said that every post about Christopher was positive, which made the family feel good about Teresa's marriage. But social media only shows us what people want us to see. Behind those smiling photos could be arguments, threats, or fear that no one else knows about. People often use social media to create the image of the life they want to have, not necessarily the life they're actually living. Teresa's tragic death teaches us important lessons about protecting ourselves and the people we love, even when everything seems fine on the surface. First, we need to stay truly connected to our family and friends. This means more than just liking their social media posts or seeing them at holiday gatherings. It means having real conversations about how they're doing, not just what they're doing. Ask questions that go deeper than how's work or how's the family. Try asking, how are you feeling lately? Or is there anything you're worried about? Create safe spaces for people to share their concerns. Sometimes people don't talk about problems in their relationships because they're embarrassed, or they think others won't believe them, or they don't want to burden anyone. Let the people in your life know that you're available to listen without judgment if they ever need to talk. Pay attention to changes in behavior, even small ones. If someone who usually loves family gatherings starts making excuses not to come, or if someone who's always been open suddenly becomes private about their home life, it might be worth checking in. These changes don't always mean something bad is happening, but they're worth noticing. If you're concerned about someone's safety, trust your instincts. Even if you can't point to specific evidence of abuse, if something feels wrong, it's okay to express your concern. You might say something like, "I care about you and I want to make sure you're okay. Is there anything you want to talk about?" For people who might be in dangerous relationships themselves, remember that you deserve to feel safe in your own home. If you're ever afraid of your partner, if they threaten you, or if they try to control who you see or what you do, those are serious warning signs. You don't have to wait until violence occurs to seek help. Teresa Adams Pugh was so much more than the victim of a terrible crime. She was a devoted mother who raised 4 children and celebrated every milestone in their lives. She was a proud grandmother who knew all 14 of her grandchildren by name and cheered for their successes. She was a faithful church member who served her community for decades. She was the kind of person who made family gatherings special and brought joy to everyone around her. Teresa's family will remember her infectious smile, her love of Christmas decorations, and the way she could light up any room she entered. They'll remember Thanksgiving dinners at her house when cars lined the street because so many people wanted to be part of her celebration. They'll remember how she encouraged her granddaughter Danya when she got accepted to college, and how she always made everyone feel loved and supported. The tragedy of March 22, 2025, took Teresa away from all the people who needed her love and guidance. Her children lost their mother, her grandchildren lost their biggest cheerleader, and her community lost someone who made life better for everyone she met. But Teresa's story also serves as a powerful reminder of how unpredictable human behavior can be. Even people we think we know completely can surprise us in ways we never expected. This doesn't mean we should live in fear, but it does mean we should stay connected to each other and never take our relationships for granted. Teresa's story reminds us to cherish our loved ones and stay vigilant. What's your biggest takeaway from this case? Share your thoughts below, and if this video opened your eyes to something new, please share it with someone who needs to hear Teresa's story. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives like this.